Okay, welcome everybody. We're going to start this pitch session, and I'm really pleased to hear all your wonderful collaborative innovations. So we're going to have a series of pitches, so 5 pitches in total, and after that we have room for a couple of questions from the audience, from the jury, and also from me possibly. So we're going to start with Alex. So Alex and Isaac, can I maybe invite you to start with your pitch? So actually, it's about listening across the digital device and talk to Loop, so Stichting Loop. Go ahead, please.
Right. Can you see my screen?
Absolutely.
Right. All right. So yeah, an introduction to Loop is that these 4 documents at the bottom of the screen have clearly identified the will of people to try to listen. Mark Lowcock, the head of the UN office of OCHA, said that the humanitarian system is not listening to people in crisis. However, there's an opportunity now like never before due to the technological revolution where we can listen to local people about the aid that they receive to increase its efficiency and effectiveness. The task at hand is how can we engage with, listen to the most vulnerable people over time on what is most important to them? How can we close the digital divide to learn from and engage with the bottom 2 billion people? The bottom 2 billion people are people who speak underserved languages, people who have a smartphone and who maybe are not literate or come from oral communities where they don't feel as confident typing and reading. So together we worked with the Loop and Nexus Consortium, is a consortium of 8 of the largest NGOs in Somalia, along with Oxfam and Save the Children and Sonda Collective. And we went and designed a prototype to listen to people from this community in Somalia. So how it works is you, a woman, for example, in an IDP camp in Somalia, in rural Somalia, she can phone 4343, which is for free on any phone that she can get access to. Then she'll receive an automatic number about the language that she speaks. After that, she is invited to record a message about what's important to her, leaving as much information as possible. That audio file is sent to Loop. We transcribe it, we moderate it, we translate it, and we post it up on the digital platform. So talktoloop.org is a digital platform where anybody from around the world can read and engage with stories that come onto the platform. But that's not enough. Loop goes further by bringing these people back onto the digital platform. So anybody can reply to her story and her feedback in a language that suits them on any device at any time. That message then gets moderated by the moderator, it gets translated and posted on the Loop platform for everybody else to see. But at the same time, Loop will also take that written text and turn it into an audio track, so from text to speech, and send it to her so that when she has her phone charged, when she has connection to a phone line, she can listen to that robocall and then push a number to reply to it if she chose to continue the cycle of engaging. So the future that we're looking to do is to collectively use technology that already exists, bring it together, and make technology work for everyone, everywhere. Thank you.
Well done and in time. I'm really, really impressed as the first one. Fantastic. So, and also super inspiring. So that above all. So maybe we can move now to the next one. And please, if you're participating as a listener, later on you can ask everybody all kinds of questions, so you can put them in the chat. But for now, we're going to go to pitch number 2, which is with Zigora Ibe and Kingsley Godwin. And it will be about the action group on free civic space tracking team. So please go ahead.
Hello, everybody. Thank you. I'm trying to share my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, we can. It's still in the slide
Okay,
mode, so it's not in the presenter mode yet. But we see the other slides coming up, but otherwise it's working fine.
Okay, can you see it now?
Yeah, but we also see the slide bar at the side. It's fine. Go ahead.
Okay, oh, wow, that's its PDF. Okay, on March 11, 2020, the World Health Organization declared COVID-19 a global pandemic. Although before then, Nigeria already announced its first confirmed case of the disease on 27th of February 2020, and the second case on March 9th, 2020. But by March 31st, with over 139 cases and 2 deaths, the Nigerian government imposed a sweeping lockdown on 3 major high-risk cities, namely Abuja, Lagos, and Ogun State. With the coronavirus lockdown came other attendant issues, chief of which were human rights violations perpetrated by law enforcement agents who are monitoring the COVID-19 lockdown and stay-at-home directives. In a different time, the civil society in Nigeria would have swung into action, spilling into the streets in protest and speedily assessing victims in real time and providing legal support for them. But this time, things were different. Communities, victims, and even civil society were locked away in their homes, and therefore we had to think very fast. And so thus, the Action Group on Free Civic Space Tracking Team was birthed. It's a network of individuals and organizations working together to make sure that government regulations in the name of national security do not shrink the civic space. On April 17, 2020, 6 civil society organizations bettered the tracking team and began to track incidents of pandemic-induced human rights abuses on a digital database known as closingspaces.com. As.org. As a follow-up action, the tracking team also launched legal helplines to provide free legal services to persons whose rights were violated as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic lockdown enforcement. And by then, while thinking of other encompassing and inclusive advocacy solutions, the team also created an eyewitness account on the digital database to help people who were stuck at home, also provide real-time information that will help us hold institutions accountable and perpetrators too. From the findings of the tracking team, we found out 3 trends during the enforcement period. It was that government and state actors were using excessive force to enforce pandemic lockdown protocols. We also found out that state and municipal authorities were misapplying constitutional powers to advance other objectives unrelated to disease control. Third trend was that we found out that state authorities were using legal and regulatory tools to subtly legitimize official restrictions. For instance, there was an infectious diseases bill about to be passed in the country that had draconian provisions for civic freedoms. But thankfully, civil society in the country and the Action Group on Free Civic Space Tracking Team shut that down. Now, in the small space of time, we were able to have people calling, we were able to have people reach out where we couldn't meet them physically to help them. We were able to help over 106 people access legal services because we had a pool of lawyers across all areas in the country who speedily attended to cases once there was a call on our phone. Through this, for us, the lesson of change was the power in flexibility and adaptability and collaboration. The tracking team was able to succeed because it keyed into these 3 things. And for us, there was a new perspective. It was also the idea of beginning to use technology to advance human rights advocacy. Finally, we also understood that beneficiaries and communities are important parts of our work. And no matter what the challenge is, the idea is to always find the beneficiaries and communities and create spaces for innovations despite the challenge that we face. Thank you so much.
Again, well done and in time. I'm super proud. I'm guiding quite a lot of startups and they have to pitch on a regular basis, but they're not that good at it as you are. So already, yoo-hoo! Really pleased about it. So the next one is Pang, and he will be explaining or describing or pitching the Digital Quotient Youth Workshops, which is an innovation for change in East Asia. So Pang, please take the floor. In the presenter mode, indeed, fantastic.
Hello. So we have we have in the civil society world done a lot of digital security training because we recognize that there is a lot of concerns when it comes to using the internet for us to connect or do our campaigns or strategizing. And oftentimes, this digital security trainings can be very, very good because we learn a lot. But what does it mean to keep doing security trainings, digital security training, when these things keep changing, the threats keep changing? And what does it mean for people whose whole life have been immersed living in the digital world? So when we think about youth, they grew up in completely immersed in the digital world, and there's a continuum from their digital self, their online selves, to their offline selves. There's not a separation, it's a continuum. And for many of them who want to do activism, this is their wish, their cry, right? How can we use digital spaces and products so that we get to control the narrative that we want, reach out to the community in need, advocate the changes we want to see, and mobilize a social movement? I wish to know how to fight back digitally, reclaim our online spaces, find the balance between brave spaces and safe spaces, and curate a meaningful digital space. So what we are hearing is the desire not just to protect and defend and constantly look out for threats. We are hearing a desire to transform. We are hearing a desire for change. So we ended up with this idea called the digital quotient. And we decided that maybe what we need is to give people a chance to think about safety and literacy. So we decided to we reached out to feminist internet digital trainers based in Asia, because we thought, who else but feminist digital trainers know how to create spaces, share power, interrogate oppression, and find humane and equal ways of participating and sharing the platform. So together with our feminist trainers, we formulated this digital quotient as a space for digital literacy plus digital safety. For us, it's more than just protecting ourselves against digital threats, and also more than just finding opportunities to beat another company in a competitive capitalist digital world. It's about how we can safely connect with each other to build a digital democracy for all, whether we understand the internet or not. Because social media is designed deliberately to get people hooked to it, right? Social media algorithms exploit our brain's tendency towards divisiveness, but social media is also great for mobilizing collective action and getting people's emotions going. There needs to be more deliberate thinking in how we engage these spaces. So instead of scaring people about online threats, we should show how the internet works so that people can assess their own risks better when they understand how the internet works. Ultimately, people, of course, when they go to digital security training, they want you to tell them which platform is safe. The fact is, no platform is perfect. Understanding the community's needs will help to identify which platform best suits the purpose. So this involves planning, thinking about how planning of strategies, feedbacking, sharing documents, and making urgent decisions each require a different platform. So you cannot just teach digital security training in one lesson and hope it goes away. It's better to teach strategies. And the strategies come from knowing the internet and understanding how it works, so that each community can be empowered to know their digital quotient, so that they can define it, they can tell each other and plan together what kind of digital security suits their activism. That is what digital quotient is for us. And so for us, it's a very simple solution. Instead of just scaring people, empower them with the knowledge of how it works so that they can take it further. Thank you.
Wonderful. Well done again. I'm proud of you all. So the next one, or the next ones, I have to say, are Mika, yeah, and there you go, Velitalo. So please pronounce your name yourself once more, and Peter Nyungana. And they're gonna explain or pitch the power bank experiment, which is a Fingo power bank. So maybe just for me, how do I pronounce your name correctly?
Pretty well, pretty well.
Okay.
It's Mika Välitalo.
Valitalo. Okay, there you
Yes,
go.
great.
Fantastic.
So hi to everyone, nice to be here, and greetings from Finland. And my colleague is, well, Peter, go ahead to introduce yourself.
My name is Peter. I work with Fingo Power Bank, and I'm based in Nakuru, Kenya.
And as you can see, my brave colleague is stuck in a traffic, but can still make it. So this is nice. Thanks,
Wow.
Peter.
Points for
Okay.
you.
Okay, we'll start. Just a second. I need to switch to the right window. Okay, now I think it works. So meet Ari from Finland and Thea from Tanzania, as you can see in the slide. They work for Sports and Development, an NGO that aims to improve the lives of children and youth through sports and health education. But this NGO has a challenge. They look for a more efficient way to gather data from the pupils, which you can see on the right, in an engaging and participatory manner in the local schools.
However, they note that trying out new approaches, technologies, or partnerships is not easy, as many other development organizations have prior noticed. Donors require more precise plans and predetermined outcomes. Therefore, in many cases, it is easier to continue with business as usual, duplicating what is already familiar.
Well, this lessens the ability of the civil society organizations to renew, adapt, and develop, which is badly needed to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. However, then Ari and Thea, the people you met on the first slide, note an opportunity. Fingo has launched the Power Bank Experiment Program. This model allows NGOs, their local partners, and collaborators to initiate experiment within existing programs. Both successes and failures are accepted as long as the experiences and learnings are shared with the peers.
Then Ari and Thea grab the opportunity then. They apply with an idea. They would like to experiment and bring the audience response tool from Ombea into a completely new setting. Rural Tanzania schools. They get in. Power Bank supports them to finalize the concept, facilitate the collaboration with Ombea, and pay 5,000 euros to conduct the 4 months experiment.
After learning from the hardships and successes in using the new tool with the regular support and communication from the Power Bank team, the NGO presents the results for a wide number of other NGOs and adopts the new tool in their everyday work.
This story is one case among many others. Power Bank model has already energized and inspired 16 development organizations to conduct 22 different tests with more than 20 partners in the areas of health, education, and M&E in East Africa.
This model really works, as reported by the participating organizations. It keeps bureaucracy to the minimum, concepts short, and maximizing the support and sharing within the community. Although the funding is only between 5,000 to 10,000 euros, it serves as a catalyst for NGOs to step off the beaten track and then eventually adopt new approaches. And the new round is actually starting soon. So thanks, everyone.
Well done again. And then a dual presentation, partly from the traffic jams. I think that is really something. I'm really impressed. So there must have been quite a little bit of stress there, I can imagine. But well done, well done. So the last one is Dumi. We already met Dumi, and Dumi's gonna present the Tswana Justice Collective Success Capital. So Dumi, take the floor. Unmute yourself. You have to unmute yourself. Yeah, minor detail. We have to make a t-shirt. Unmute.
Hi, thank you. I'm hoping that my screen can share. If not, I might just have to run through it and you'll have to deal with my face. But anyway, so the Tswana Justice Collective is really a sex worker-led, queer youth, feminist-led, and substance use user-led organization or network, if I can put it that way, by those respective rights groups organizations. And our work is really anchored in ensuring that the gaps that exist, the inequalities that exist can essentially be addressed within the limited parameters of our resources. So it's really about strengthening agency within the context of voice and visibility. So that's ensuring that multiple or intersecting vulnerabilities can be addressed. So I could be a migrant foreign sex worker that happens to be queer, and our work is anchored in ensuring that we're able to address at least multiple of those different identities. And so this is a context that's characterized by ambiguity and criminalization. As I speak now, we are 6 days away from our government appealing the decriminalization of same-sex intercourse. Sex work remains criminalized and ambiguous, given the ambiguity in the context of law and the mere fact of multiple vulnerabilities around climate injustice, systemic violence, stigma and discrimination, and inequities that existed pre-pandemic. And our work is really anchored in ensuring that we can anchor programming around lived experiences. And so storytelling, citizen documentaries that share perspectives around bodily autonomy and integrity, harmful gender norms, and trying to ensure accountability within the context of service delivery, whether it comes to universal health coverage or injustices around gender-based violence and intimate partner violence. This is anchored around representation, language, and inclusion. Some of the mechanisms that we've been using to influence policy include the technical working groups under the Ministry of Health and Wellness. They also include producing chapters under the African peer review mechanism. And so these are practical elements that ensure accountability and participation of rights holders within the context of local, national, and regional governance mechanisms. And I think, what's important is really highlighting or illuminating what we're really dealing with here. And we're talking about systemic issues that are consistently polarized, politicized, and often sexualized. And so we're trying to ensure that alternative narratives through citizen documentaries that uncover different elements in terms of aspirations, ensuring inclusion in programming, and also giving back, where we have contributed to over 60,000 sanitary pads across the country, and essentially providing a space for engaging political leaders, traditional leaders, and other service delivery practitioners that can hear some of the challenges that are experienced across our different rights groups. Another element is addressing the inequality that exists, where we provide different trainings in the spirit of bodily autonomy and integrity that focus on economic participation. Another element that's around storytelling is providing different forms of knowledge production. And so that it's not just participatory research, but it's also embedded in podcasts. And lastly, ensuring that we can share these perspectives in healing circles. And so support groups are a part of the infrastructure within the community health response system, and essentially ensuring that there are safe sex communities and different forms of knowledge products that are centered and anchored in community experiences. I think two main final lessons learned. It's really about healing and transformation and ensuring that there can be elements of care at individual and collective levels, acknowledging that these can actually have an impact in the context of burnout and exhaustion, not just in care that's carried out at home, but also for us as volunteers or different member organizations. And then lastly, sort of acknowledging acknowledging that change is messy, it can be pretty ugly, and that the personal is quite political, and that there's a consistent need in ensuring feminist leadership by questioning who's not in the room and how do we ensure that all of these different facets or all these different needs and aspirations across the vulnerabilities can be addressed within the context of our advocacy, community service work, or ensuring inclusion in development policy-making frameworks. Thank you very much, and my apologies for that presentation not working.
Wow, I think it's fantastic how you presented it, and we already know from before that you're super good in presenting and a very power speaker, as we said it before. So thanks a lot to all of you. So for those who are looking or listening in, feel free to use the chat, because now is the moment to ask all questions you want to ask, but I also have quite a few questions. So maybe I will just start, and then I'm doing it a bit random, so we're not following constantly the order of the presentation. But I would love, I mean, as I said before, I also work with startups and with scaling and in an accelerator program. So all these jargon, so don't mind. But one question that is important, that I think all of you want to create more impact and reach more people. So how, so you have been prototyping and you've been testing your innovation. How do you foresee scaling? So reaching more people or creating more impact? Could one of you, I mean, if you feel like, oh, I could do this one, then you just wave, and then, okay, Mika is already waving. So
Yeah.
start with Mika, but maybe this is a question for all of you. So already you can start thinking, okay, what will be my answer? But Mika, go
Sure.
on.
Yeah, I can take one point. So when we are supporting NGOs and their partners in the global south to implement these experiments, we are also always encouraging them to embed them to already existing projects, because typically they have running projects, so that whatever they do in the experiments, it can be adopted and scaled within that project. So we have already seen NGOs not only having the experiments and saying this is how it went, but actually adopting those and then scaling with the funding that they have available, or they are applying for more funding and scale. So that's one point, but I leave more for the others.
That's kind. Thanks a lot. Fantastic. Maybe Kingsley or Zikoro, would you like to respond?
Hello, good afternoon.
Hi, Kingsley.
Yeah, so for we at Action Group on Free Civic Spaces, we, as you already know, we're a network, a joint network of several NGOs coming together to take collaborative action in addressing the issues of social injustice and human rights abuse in Nigeria. So for we, that's what we do. And we use several methods. Now, the basic thing about how we work is we
how
have
to scale as well, right? So how can you make it broader and bigger?
Yeah, so how we make it bigger basically is to enlist more NGOs that are working on the same issues across several states in Nigeria. So that way we're able to track several issues as they are happening. We have our members located in different locations. So as soon as an issue is happening, we have them being able to track that issue and report it on our online database, our online tracking database. So that way we're able to work as a network and as a team in tackling the issues that occur here in Nigeria.
Oh, fantastic. Thanks a lot. And Alex, do you can you elaborate a little bit on how you foresee scaling or reaching more people? Yeah.
So for us, scalability is the real success indicator, that the impact of Loop can be a lot bigger if we can get to scale and see the aggregated data. That would then influence policy and funding decision making. So the structure there is first to build the technology in a way that it can be scaled. So it's built in a way where we can add on 100 languages and we can receive the types of feedback that we're hoping to get across multiple channels. The second one is decentralized. So if a country wants to bring Loop into their ecosystem, they set up their own locally led governance sort of structures, and then Loop will come in and help them use the technology in a way that suits their cultural environment, their the risks of their context, the way that they're used to feeding back and engaging and communicating feedback. So they own it and roll it out locally. So it's, if it can add value to them, then the scalability
You're breaking up a little bit, Alex. sometimes.
and find
Fantastic. And then, so I think we heard most of it and the best part of it. So, but sometimes you're breaking up, Alex. So if you want to really make a last point that I didn't get, you can also write it down in the chat just to be sure. So, Pong, can I also ask you, how are you going to scale? What are your ideas there beyond prototype?
Yes, but there's also a question for me. From
Yeah,
Vic.
I'll get to that later. There's also questions
right,
for
right.
Judy, so we'll do that.
All
But
right.
first this one, because I'm really eager to know.
So actually, for us, scaling goes in the opposite direction. We tried to keep it quite broad for the first workshop we did, and we had about 21 participants, and they came from all over the East Asia region. For us, East Asia also includes Southeast Asia. So we had queer participants from Brunei, which is the first time, very rare and very special to us.
Yeah.
Also participants from Myanmar, and in fact there was a queer participant in Myanmar who was experiencing a lot of digital issues in trying to get connected as well. And there was also one who was on the run from the military while joining our workshop. And so we got different people together who were queer activists, student protesters from Thailand and even Myanmar, people who were leading unions in Cambodia. And we wanted to bring them together because they were connected by their age and the emergence in the field of activism. The issue we found is that because the themes were so diverse, it was hard to draw concrete lessons that were specific to each community. So we felt that going forward, we shouldn't keep the topics too broad or the group too broad. We should actually keep it to it should be community based, and or at least thematically similar. For example, we could reach out to Muslim LGBT activists working in Muslim majority contexts, and this could also connect people from different countries, but they at least share some of the same concerns.
Yeah, wonderful. Hey, and Dumi, we lost you for a second. You're back again, so I'm really pleased. And Alex also has, internet is still an issue, right, for everybody. Also here we were experiencing quite some technical issues, but and Alex also pointed out some of her main elements. But Dumi, what I'm asking everybody is okay, how do you intend to scale or reach more people? Could you maybe elaborate briefly on that? And then I have an extra question for you from the audience.
So I will address both. So the first is that, we are already scaling. So, our work was always quite interdependent. And so it really took, leadership as a verb to collaborate and find ways of leveraging the limited resources that we all each had. And so now we're scaling because we were funded as sub-recipients of the Global Fund to End AIDS, Tuberculosis, and Malaria to document human rights abuses. And so even though our programming with all three organizations was limited to the Southeast region and a portion of Northeast, those are basically with the two biggest cities, we've now extended, as a result of this additional funding, to extend our services towards the Okavango region as well as Ngamiland. And so that's two additional sort of streams of work that are really around, documenting, issues around access, discrimination, and removing human rights barriers to HIV. And then, also now to answer the second question, that's really around the resistance. I think it's resistance at multiple levels. First, sometimes family doesn't always understand. Secondly, when we meet policymakers, they always question, where are these people? What are you talking about? We don't understand. And so it becomes very difficult sometimes, especially when you don't have the kind of language that can acknowledge, whether you speak about colonialism within the context of our laws, and even sort of trying to understand issues without sexualizing them. And so we have best thing that we've done is in having the lived experiences actually sharing the stories. And you find surprises where, traditional leaders are sitting there and quite surprised and say, I remember someone reporting an issue, at the customary court, and I was able to actually assist them with social workers. And so I think putting a human face behind it and sharing, and not necessarily performing poverty, but really sharing the experiences for people to recognize and realize that we pay taxes, that we have dreams and aspirations, and we've got talent, is really where the power lies, where community community can actually own it without the activists being there during a campaign, where the community can essentially say, you know, HIV or GBV is really not about my inability to defend myself or to make the right kinds of decisions, but that it is a structural problem, that it's embedded in the need for universal health coverage, in targeting and challenging harmful gender norms, and lastly, ensuring no one is left behind within development discourse.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Umi. Really wonderful. And there's also a question I noticed from the audience for Pang. Your campaign was about awareness raising on digital security, but did you also offer them platforms that are secure to use? Maybe you can briefly say something about that.
Thanks for the great question, Vic. Just to clarify, it wasn't a campaign about digital security. It was an attempt to get activists and communities who have concerns about digital security to think broader into digital quotient so that they can determine for themselves what is their digital quotient and what is their digital security. Therefore, we felt that it was quite pointless, if this is the thesis, to offer them a platform. That wasn't the intention of the workshop, because platforms work differently for different people.
Yeah.
So what we did was to tell them that you have to look at your needs and what the needs are and your community's needs are, and then decide the platform for yourself, because no platforms are perfect and they will keep changing. So it's better to give people a strategy to decide for themselves rather than tell them which platform to use.
Wonderful. Well said. Thanks a lot. So for others, if you still have questions, let me know. We have 1 or 2 minutes left, so I'm going to be really brief. But I would like to know maybe from, let's say, from Mika and from Sigoro. So I mean, we all talk about collaboration, and you have already explained it a bit, but what was the key added value of this collaboration? So where do you feel this is where we really complemented each other? I mean, obviously it can be sometimes on the technical level, but maybe also we talked about the different lenses and different perspectives. Where do you feel the collaboration really had an added value? Could you, Mika first maybe, and then Zikora or Kingsley, could you maybe briefly elaborate?
Yeah, I can go ahead. 2 points. One is that we really encouraged NGOs to collaborate with other organizations, also with the private sector. And in many experiments, we have seen that happening. And so the NGOs have been able to adopt new practices and tools that they haven't been able to do yet. And secondly, we are always bringing the experiments together as a community. So several times during the implementation, we bring all the NGOs together to share learnings and discuss also in the end. So those two.
Fantastic. And then Sikora, or will it be Kingsley? Because I have to run in a minute downstairs to the main stage, and then we're going to announce. Yeah, but go ahead. Who's going to do the two? One of you. Kingsley, you're unmuted. Yeah. So what do you think was the best added value of your collaboration? Or Sigora, but Sigora is not muted. He's still muted. Yeah. Kingsley. Muted, unmuted. Such a hassle.
Oh, sorry. Okay, I was actually thinking Zikora was going to respond to that, but that's fine.
Yeah, so I think it's the connection. It's also a bit difficult.
Yeah. So the added value of our collaboration has been the fact that many NGOs have been able to leverage on our network to grow their individual NGOs. And that's the idea of it. The idea is to have many civil society organizations standing by themselves and doing well by themselves. And that's the essence of the actions that we have taken. Also, the fact that when we come together as a network, the government cannot trace each NGO specifically and target them specifically. Why? Because we're working together as a team. So our results are expanded, our impact are expanded. Recently, we got funded by the Funds for Global Human Rights.
I'm going to cut you off, Kingsley. I'm going to be super blunt and very Dutch, because in 1 minute, I have to run down and be on the main stage because we're going to announce winners. But you can write down your essence again on the chat, but you also have to move quickly and use the different Zoom link because excitement, we're going to announce the winners. Yeah, see you in a second. I'll be
All
right
right,
there.
thank
I'm
you.
sorry to interrupt you. Sorry. And
Thank
Good
you
luck,
very much.
everyone.
speeches.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so
Thanks.
Yes, bye.
Hi, everybody. Greetings from Quito, Ecuador. My name is Cristina Ordóñez, and I will present the virtual innovation labs developed by the Latin America and the Caribbean Hub of the Innovation for Change Network. So, civil society organizations in Latin America and the Caribbean play an important role developing solutions to the problems that the region is facing. However, challenges are great and require joint efforts between different organizations and social actors, as well as methodologies that promote collaboration in the search for innovative solutions. During the pandemic, we worked to promote and defend civic space in our region, and one of the tools we used are the virtual innovation labs. So a virtual innovation lab is a creative space where civil society organizations, activists, and social entrepreneurs work together to co-create an innovative solution for a social problem. We use a design thinking methodology that leads the participant through the process of creation, designing, and prototyping. What is really important for us is to understanding people's actual needs to design a human-centered solution. At the end of the process, the teams present their solution prototype, and one of them receives a seed fund to implement the prototype, test it, and then scale it. This methodology is easily adaptable. Since 2020, we have developed 6 virtual innovation labs with more than 200 participants from 13 countries in the region, and we have also the support from several civil society organizations partners in Latin America. The winning prototypes provided solutions to climate change, gender violence, food security, migrant women, and youth employment. Here I'm going to show you just some examples of the prototypes we developed during these innovation labs. So the first one in the southern cone, this one was developed in Argentina, developed a transparent model for the management of food donations for local communities, and more than 1,300 food plates have been delivered since today. The prototype is scaling up into a long-term program of food security with other partners. In the Northern Triangle of Central America, the seed fund was used to support entrepreneurship of women that were victims of domestic violence. So right now we are supporting 7 women from Guatemala and 7 women from Honduras. They are receiving financial and psychological support. In the Andean region, the prototype generated linkages between Ecuadorian women and Venezuelan migrant women. And they receive also like emotional support and financial support to develop their businesses. And finally, in the Caribbean, the winning team developed a prototype. It's a video curriculum for young people, and they get also training on how for job interviews and job hunting. This year, we are also celebrating 4 other innovation labs in Costa Rica, Paraguay, Peru, and Colombia. And we developed also a second phase, an incubation phase for prototypes in the Dominican Republic, which is focused on giving support to the winning teams to scale up their prototypes. In our experience, people really appreciate these spaces where they can work with other organizations to co-create an innovative solution to a real problem while they are learning a new methodology. So what is our distinguishing element? We facilitate access to design thinking tools for the social sector, which normally is not familiar with that kind of methodologies. We transfer the methodology to organizations so they can apply it in their daily work. We promote collaboration between organizations from different countries that haven't met before. We support solution prototypes that generate local impact in their communities and have the potential to scale up. And we bring innovation to civil society organizations in our region. We are Innovation for Change Latin America and the Caribbean, and we invite you to imagine the impact we can achieve together if we replicate our labs in other regions to face social challenges. Thank you. I will stop sharing.
We can't hear you, differ, and I'm thinking you'll probably be introducing me next.
Yeah. Okay, let me try.
You hear me though?
Yeah, maybe you can do the honors, Denise.
Hi. So
Anybody hearing me? Yeah. Yung tika, yung mana.
Hi.
You
Hello.
are breaking up, sorry.
Can anyone hear me?
Yes, we can hear you well.
I've been called up. I'm sorry. I'm having challenges hearing. Okay. Thank you. I will share my screen now. Can you confirm if you can see my screen?
Not yet.
No.
Not yet. Okay. Share. And now?
Nope.
Oh no, not again.
I think technology is not helping us today.
Not at all. Let's see. Yet?
No.
Okay. Does Gigi have my latest presentation? I'm really not sure why I'm not able to share my screen.
Gigi is saying yes.
Gigi, may you please open the presentation for me? It's just one one slide, thank God. So at least. Okay, as we start, I'm going to quickly introduce myself. Thank you, Gigi. My name is Nomtigam Joanna, and I'm based in Cape Town, South Africa. I am here on behalf of the Global Network of People Living with HIV, and I will be presenting to you Voice Plus, which is an initiative that is led by GNP Plus, a couple of global leading HIV organizations, as well as national and local networks of people living with HIV. So I will wait for Gigi to share my screen. There we go. Thank you. So we know that COVID-19 has really affected a lot of people and communities and institutions quite drastically. And for people living with HIV, that has particularly exacerbated a lot of challenges that they were already facing and navigating on a day-to-day basis. This includes limited access to services and peer support groups. It includes gaps in evidence of how communities of people living with HIV are impacted by a lot of factors, such as stigma, discrimination, and criminalization, as well as COVID-19. But the one thing that came up a lot from networks as a result of COVID-19 was the inconsistent messaging and misinformation on how COVID and other health challenges affect people living with HIV. So a group of leading global HIV organizations came together and worked with networks at national and local level with people living with HIV to think through and workshop what a solution would look like that would address some of these challenges. Enter Voice Plus, which is a digital activist hub for people living with HIV. Voice Plus is a smartphone app linked to the WhatsApp chatbot, which enables people living with HIV to access accurate and evidence-based information on all things HIV related. It allows them to connect and have a cross-learning session through a chat function, but also be able to have a platform where they can raise human rights concerns as well as share their advocacy successes. So Voice Plus as a tool was workshopped and ideated with networks rigorously, and we soft launched it in October 2020. After a successful pilot phase in Uganda and Nigeria, where we saw 60 users of the platform happy with the tool, one of the key learnings that we identified as a unique identifier for Voice Plus was that it is a tool that is unique for people living with HIV. And that alone was an initial starting point for communities to feel safe and to consider this a platform that they can use as a resource for themselves to cross-learn and share their experiences. We've also learned that solutions always come from people that are facing challenges, and this often requires meaningful engagement. And the success of the pilot phase of Voice Plus was actually defined by the fact that we worked actively with networks and we provided resources for them to be an active part of developing this tool. But also as part of the specific features on the tool, which involves advocacy and human rights monitoring, we got to learn that human rights monitoring and response systems are not homogeneous and they require critical design. At this current moment, we are looking at scaling to 10 more countries and working to improve what we have gathered from the evaluation from the pilot phase. And in working with networks, we are hoping that Voice Plus indeed will be a tool where networks can access accurate information, be able to connect with one another, but also have a space where they can raise human rights concerns, human rights violations, as well as be able to learn from one another around the successes of their own advocacy. Imagine this world with us, and we welcome people who are interested in partnering with us on Voice Plus. Thank you.
So we cannot hear you. Should I just go ahead then?
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you. First, I want to comment on the Dennis outfit. Gorgeous. Love it. Just wait for me to share my screen. Okay, I have to share the whole screen then. Please let me know if you can't see, yeah?
Yes.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Really nice to be here. I really hope that I can see all your faces. But anyway, my name is Zhiren Ye, and I'm a campaigner from Oxfam Novib. Today, I'm going to introduce you a very exciting tool, and it's called Game of Change. It's a gamified tool to make changes happen. So here are the biggest social movements in the past 10 years. And what do these social movements have in common? Youth activism is at the very heart of these social movements. Young people have the power to change their lives and shape a better society, but they're often excluded from decision-making and remain invisible and unheard. This is particularly true for marginalized youth. So what is our solution? And our solution is to create a tool to support young people to amplify their voices and support them in making changes happen. So we created a game of change. This is a journey how we come to the game of change. As you can see in this slide, there are three key stakeholders involved: young people, Oxfam, and game developer companies. Young people inform us about their needs and interests to develop such tool, and Oxfam provided the content based on the past abundant experience in influencing and campaigning, and game developer companies turn this content into the product. But the journey does not just end here, because in order to ensure that the game of change really meets the need of young people also need to play a vital role in providing testing and feedback. And game development companies also offer the gaming theory to make the game of change more appealing and accessible for young people. And with this cycle, Oxfam is able to deliver the game of change. So you can see here it's really a collaborative effort between young people, NGO, and private sector. And the trial of this collaborative effort is the game of change. In the game of change, young people can choose their avatars, and they can see their progress in the roadmap. They can identify the key actors they want to influence. They will make an action plan and timeline how to make the influencing work happen. And each chapter, they also get some rewards. And at the end, through this step-by-step guidance, they will become a certified hero who makes the changes happen. And the game of change is currently available in 5 languages. And according to our survey, 100% of young people responded positively to the game. And 84% of them believe that this is really a tool that can help them to make changes happen. And now we need your support to continue the journey, because the game of change is still a very minimal viable product. So we need more improvement, adaptation, and testing. And that's why we want to invite you to join our journey to continue to test this game, to improve this game, because we believe that only together we can make changes happen. Thank you very much.
Hello, I'm trying it like this now. Yeah, great. Thank you so much, Ren, and I'm happy you're able to hear me now. Lovely pitch. We're gonna go on with pitch number 4. That is Making Facts Work for Workers by CNV, and the pitch will be given by Alice van Ark. So take it away.
I'm waiting for Anna from Data for Development to get in. She just announced that she would like to join, but she can't click the button anymore.
Can I ask Jiran, to for now leave the room so we can make space for one of the other panel members or one of the other pitchers, and then if Anna can request to speak again, then we can add Anna to the panel. May I suggest that in the meantime, while we wait for Anna to join, that Shu will start the pitch number 5 then? Thank you.
Can you hear me? Oh, but someone is sharing a different deck.
Are you seeing my pitch right now? I can't see anything, so.
Gigi, I'll hold off.
Yes, Alice, we can see your pitch. You can start and go ahead if you want to.
Thank you. I'm Alice, director from CNV International, and together with Anna from Data for Development, we joined forces with a South African mobile survey company and our Cambodian trade union partners CLC and Sivadu. Our Cambodian trade union conducted the first paper survey in 2017. They interviewed 300 textile workers on what they need to make ends meet. The research showed that the current minimum wage is way below the living wage. And our union used this fact in their wage negotiations, and this resulted in a 7% wage increase, which is incredible, of course. However, our union received also outside criticism because the sample was too limited. We therefore believed our union could really benefit from a tool that unions can use to easily collect data from workers. This is Atit Kong, and as you can see, he really believes that this tool can help him to have a better seat at the negotiation table. How our approach works. Our approach is based on the first pilots that we started in Latin America, where we started last year with a survey focused on sugarcane workers. We conducted this pilot ourselves, but later on asked Data for Development to help us improve. And this year we started a pilot with our Cambodian unions, and we used the Mombensi tool, which is easy to use for workers on their mobile phones. I'm waiting for Anna.
Hi, sorry, do you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes, great, just in time. Okay, so what makes this project unique is that it's not just about gathering data or using a digital tool, but rather increasing data capacity at the local unions so that they can do it themselves. So when building the digital tool, we really focused on data literacy, helping them to understand how to achieve meaningful data that serves their purpose and to use the tool themselves so the project is sustainable. And now they can collect data remotely, which is especially important due to COVID restrictions, and reach more respondents. Also, a lot of time and effort is saved in analysis, for example, by automatically calculating the total income per worker. While workers often fill in surveys and don't hear back, this project specifically increases data ownership by making it insightful via dashboards. And we gathered a lot of positive feedback from our earlier pilot and incorporated key lessons, such as the importance to communicate about the privacy for respondents.
we are really looking to the first experience with a digital survey. And this month, next month, we will ask 500 workers to to fill in the data, to fill in the survey. And we really believe this could help him and the union to have a better seat at the negotiation table. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Alice and Anna, for your lovely pitch. And next up, we have pitch number 5, Rewriting the Narrative on Climate and Inequality Through Fun and Play by Xu Lian. The floor is yours.
Doom, gloom, and distance. Those are the images that we associate with climate change, right? Now, imagine how it is in East Africa, where many livelihoods are impacted by climate change more severely than even in the rest of the world. And that's where we ask ourselves, how can we provide a welcoming space for their voices? How can we invite them to the table? How can we motivate solutions for Christine and her neighbors and many others like them whose livelihoods are severely impacted? My name is Xu Lian, and I'm the Director of Data Adaptation. I'm here on behalf of our partners to present our innovative solution. We are rewriting the narrative on climate and inequality through fun and play. Let me introduce you to our board game, Minions of Disruption. It's a collaborative game that allows communities, participants to see how climate change may impact them, and furthermore, what initiatives they can take together. Now, through game experiences, we really just transform the experience from doom and gloom to one that is engaging, energizing, and fun. In recent months, we partnered up with Simavi, Kivosnet, and Proportion Global to adapt this game for the Kenyan context. And together we developed an advocacy tool to engage societal actors with focus particularly on climate justice and the groups who are in vulnerable situations. And allow me to just highlight 3 innovative factors. One is we take fun seriously, and you can see here in this image. And that's important because through that experience, we create the dialogue into one that's very engaging, make the complex issues easier to understand and more actionable. Imagine during a game session where Christine could be playing the role of, say, policymaker. Now, second one, we collaborate with people who we call unlikely heroes. And those are basically local champions who women, youth, or girls who can step forward and really lead their community actions. So imagine unlikely heroes after a game session can lead game participants from governments, CSOs, or even private sectors to really sit down with them and exploring climate actions that's suitable for their communities. And the third one, and to quote Kiwasnet, our partner from Kenya, this game really encouraged a new type of partnership, not only strengthening existing partnership, but also forming what we call non-traditional partnership. So imagine in the case of after a game session, community groups led by, again, Christine and many others who can really sit down with, for example, their local banks and discuss their funding needs for their own relevant climate actions. So going forward, we have played this game in countries like the Philippines, Chile, and Mexico. And looking at one of the key lessons we've learned in this journey is that it's so important, right, to co-adapt the game to suit diverse target groups and different context. And only by doing so, we can simplify the conversation into one that suits communities' own risks and experiences. And that way we can merge this advocacy to their own language and tool set. And let's face it, we want to not just restrict this to Kenya or East Africa, we want to be able to scale up and bring more communities to the table. So to sum it up, through fun and play, we create a climate positive future that participants can touch. And by doing so, together we rewrite the narrative of climate and inequality through fun and play with Christy and many others. And that's how we can take this narrative to one that is collaborating, empowering, and hopeful. Thank you.
Thank you, Shulang, and all the other nominees also for your pitches. Then I would like to invite Dennis to unmute yourself and interrogate the nominees with the questions you might have.
Yes, I'm unmuted now. Can everybody hear me? Yay, great. Okay, yeah, first of all, it was a pleasure reading the 35 applications and going through the process of selection and interesting conversations, and also getting to watch your pitches for the second time. Also really great to refresh my mind. So thank you so much for the hard work. I wrote down some impressions and things that I noticed along the way. One is the fact that impact was showcased, and I think all of these amazing projects have a great impact and provide alternatives for real problems. Something that makes me really excited about is to have community engagement, and I see there's extreme efforts to engage communities and have participation and leadership of people that are often excluded by development programs. So I really appreciate that, and also this shift from treating people as objects and starting to treat people as subjects, right? So I really see that in your projects, which makes me really excited. Yeah, also the fact that there is an acknowledgement of the continuous process of learning, and that innovation is not that you create something and then it's done, right? That there's a process that you're continuously thinking about and improving your tools and your strategies. So I think that's also super exciting to see in your work. We also noticed the digitalization and how digitalization plays a key role in contributing to social change. And I think this is a trend, and this is something that we will be dealing with beyond COVID, right? Like, how can we use technology to actually promote social change and do our activism in a different way? Yeah, the last thing I wrote down here is the fact that you did extreme efforts to reach to communities you normally don't reach out to. So I think that's also quite important in our field, to not think about our comfort zone, but really go beyond. And I think, yeah, you all did that. So congratulations for that. Yeah, I think these were my comments, basically. I have more questions that I can make, but
yeah. Is there anything you would like to ask the nominees about their innovations or about the process of making them?
Yeah, I have questions. Of course, this is an award about collaboration, right? So, and something we looked at very carefully as jury is the collaboration. So I'm curious if you could share a little bit about how did the collaboration go and how easy it was? Because from my perspective, collaboration is actually a very difficult thing. We all struggle with collaborating. So I'm also curious to know, like, where were the struggles, or where were the moments where, it was difficult, and how you sorted out?
Maybe I can share. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Shirin. So in our case, we work a lot. We have a network of civil society organizations in all the region. So we try to work directly with them and with their team, with their staff. But sometimes they are not very familiar with those new methodologies. So it's important also for us to give them like a training in the basic in design thinking and to be familiar with that methodology. So they appreciate that really much. And we have seen that a lot of people are interested in this kind of initiatives because, for example, sometimes we have made some open calls to have some mentors to our labs, and we received, I don't know, more than 100 applications for a voluntary mentoring for the innovation lab. So we have people, I don't know, maybe more familiar with innovation, social entrepreneurs that want to be in our innovation labs and work together with our communities. So yes, we have a lot of work behind. We have to be always in contact and stay in touch. But I think this is something that we have. This is one of our main results is that we have been able to have a good process of collaboration between organizations from different countries, because these innovation labs, I don't know, in one innovation lab we have people from Peru, Ecuador, Colombia working together, maybe sometimes also in one same team. We have people from different countries, and the technology and internet help us to do that collaboration. So for us, it's a very, very collaborative process during the design of the lab and during the implementation of the lab.
Yeah, thank you, Christina.
Who wants to go next? Shuliang?
Maybe I can just chime in
Please.
to the comments of collaboration and digitalization. I think when we talk about climate justice, we have to recognize, even though we are connected to the internet and quite comfortably, there are those who may not have access, digital access. And I recall in one of our game sessions with Philippines, the students were very creative. They were really like they couldn't all connect at the same time. So they were trying to walk each other through, even like just through voice, which is amazing. Imagine looking at a digital board game online. Some just sort of feels like, they're just really helping each other. And this is something that we are facing when adapting this game to the Canyon context as well. There's urban, there's rural, different context. How can we, when we co-adapt, one of our partners' proportions is very much on the human-centered design process. We will look at those groups who we want to engage. Do they all have access to digital space? How can we bring them along the journey of co-design, co-adapting? So those are the real, I would say, collaboration challenges we're facing. So hooray, digital world, but also let's make sure that we are considering the broader spectrum as well.
Thank you, Shuliang, for this great comment.
Thanks, Nomtika.
Yes, I can also just jump in to add to that. And I think this is why when we were workshopping and ideating around the different channels that we would use for Voice Plus, for example, WhatsApp came along for that particular reason, because the biggest need, right, was access to information. And although not all of the features like connecting with other people would actually happen on WhatsApp, but we had to have that tool to be able to broaden access to information for people who might not necessarily be able to download a smartphone app and things like that. So I think for us, collaboration really helped in GNP Plus, I think, like Christina said, we are also a network-centered and a community-centered organization. So we are really, generally, our global advocacy is at the pulse and is informed by engaging with networks on a day-to-day basis and getting a sense of their real-time and real-life experiences. And so Voice Plus was really an addition and some form of a digital boost that would broaden people's access to those advocacy channels and to that information. And for partners like the WHO, like UNICEF, UNAIDS, AIDS Funds, we really had a strong team of a sounding board and a steering committee that's actually helping us from a resource and a technical perspective to really shape what this tool will look like and which partners will be involved when those human rights issues and advocacy issues are being raised from a community level. So it's really listening, actively listening to voices of communities and actually doing something about it, and really being fortunate to have that channel and that umbrella of partners from a technical perspective to a programmatic perspective to a community perspective who are helping shape the project as a whole.
I can also really recognize what has been shared already. And I also have to admit that collaboration is really a struggle because in order to really, for example, in the game of change that we develop, we work with young people in climate change affected areas in rural setting in 4 countries. So really, in order to meet their needs, we have at least 5 rounds of testing each stage. And this testing, you also need to contextualize. For example, something people may prefer to have a focus group discussion or co-creation workshop. So we also need to tailor and also need to really see what fits the context the best. And on the other side, we also work with the game development companies. In the private sector, they might not familiar with the concept, the theory that NGO sector is using. And so to bring that kind of knowledge to the same page, we literally sit together for many afternoons just to dive in to really bring the knowledge and all the experience together. So I have to say that was really a struggle, but it's really worth to invest in trying to create this trust, the openness, the sharing of the experience and learning from each other. And I think that's really my takeaway from this collaboration.
Thank you.
Yes, shall I
Yes,
add something
please.
to that? I think I haven't heard anyone saying yet, but I think also COVID-19 makes innovation and collaboration also very difficult, right? I think everyone will recognize this. We work with a trade union in Cambodia, and if you try something new, something innovative, you really need to sit down next to each other instead of talking to the screen. And I think this was for us a big challenge. And I think it would have made things easier if we had to be able to sit together. Our collaboration with Data for Development was really easy, but meeting and the online meetings with our trade union partner, their native language is Khmer. So the language, you also have the language difficulties, which we of course always have when we talk and work with this trade union. But this makes it very challenging. But our solution was that the first test now we will do only with a small group of people to really convince them to be able to learn from it with each other. We start small and then increase and make it bigger, and that helps everyone to be on board, to learn, to adapt. And if you do it too fast, it's more difficult. So that was our solution and our takeaway, that we need to take small steps to achieve a bigger goal.
Yeah, thank you, Alice. And I think we have time for one more final question. So Dennis, anything you would like to know from these 5 nominees?
Sure. Yeah, I have more questions, many questions. Yeah, all of you've been working in different contexts in different countries, and the project is beyond the borders of your countries and regions. So I've been thinking here, what was the challenge of adapting the same tool in a different context, for example? So when you started implementing this in another country, like what kind of things came up and what kind of learning did you have when adapting? Because I think adapting is something we quite often do in development, and we have to be very careful, of course, in how we do it to not harm communities or underestimate communities. So I'm curious about how was the process of adapting and maybe scaling up, if you have some reflections on that.
So maybe I can just quickly go first. So when we started with the consultation and the design for Voice Plus, we went to a network in Uganda, which is Ugandan network of young people living with HIV. And it was almost an easy in because they are already starting to work on a few digital sort of innovations, and they are young people. So they are a bit more
up to speed with how technology works. And so having that in and working with them to look at how would a solution like that, a digital solution, work in a community setting was a good place for young people who are already in a community and already familiar with technology and what works and what doesn't. And then as we continue to build, prior to the soft launch, then we introduced the network of people living with HIV in Nigeria, which is much bigger, with a bigger group of people and different range of audience. So that's women living with HIV, young people, and different kinds of structures, because it's a much bigger network. And that's also where we actually had learnings around adapting language. So adapting different kind of language, the different pieces of content that we have on the tool, whether or not they actually speak to the different kind of audience that we now have on the page. And so it was really looking at how to move a tool that was almost just young people centered and actually adapting it into a more network centered, because Voice Plus isn't necessarily for young people, but it's a tool for people living with HIV. And I think our challenge, which we had to work with there, was really adapting and looking at how the content and the design of the tool accommodates the different audience.
I can also share
I think
something.
that's all the time we have. I'm so sorry, but we have to go back to the stage for the actual Innovation Award announcement of the 3 winners. So we're on a tight schedule. But thank you all for bearing with us with the technical issues. And thank you for your great pitches. Still delivered. Proud of you. And we'll see you back on the big screen in a minute. Bye.
Bye.